listener, you're in for a treat today, something kind of unique. Real Actor Lab's Sarah Gaboury asked me to come on to her IG Live to tell her community how to find managers and agents, and the conversation that unfolded was just so juicy, I had to make it an episode of the podcast. So this conversation truly is Brian breaking character because I'm kind of playing the guest. All right, I'm going to jump right into this and let you hear this IG Live with Sarah Gaboury.
Hello, my dear. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So good. I caught a little bit of what you were saying at the beginning. One of the first people I ever met in Los Angeles, Sarah.
Brian, I was trying to remember the actual way, the very first time, because we had so many people that we knew in common. I'm trying to remember the very first time.
Randy Meyer had everything to do with it. Do you remember Randy Meyer, who I went to school with?
Yes.
That is how.
Yes.
Yes.
But was that the first time? Okay, well, we'll have to talk.
I think. Okay.
I can't remember if that was the very first time. I think it might have gone back. So anyway, welcome, Brian Pataka.
Okay, thank you.
We've known each other a long time. And I'm just so happy because so many actors that I know are looking to either level up their agents or looking to find great reps for the first time, or they've ditched their reps. And this is totally your zone of genius, Brian. And because I'm such a fan of you, but I'm becoming an even bigger fan of your work just because so many of the actors in my community who work with you have such great results and such great success. So it's just such a beautiful thing to bring you in and have you talk about this. So thanks for coming.
For sure. And it's really, it's always, Sarah, whenever I'm working with one of your students, and also can we just be very transparent? I hate the word student and I hate the word client sometimes because we're all adults here. And I think sometimes students makes us feel like kids.
Actors.
And actually we can be students right? So actors, right? So all of your actors,
I agree.
Right. So all of your actors are always so prepared. And I think there's a special facility that comes with being that aware of your instrument, that you're able to discuss it and talk about it so much more clearly. And I just think that's a really beautiful gift that a lot of your actors show up with, particularly because at the end of a beautiful journey to meet a fabulous manager or agent that's a really good match for you or both, it's about you feeling like an authority on yourself and not looking delusional, and also taking up as much space as you're meant to. And I just think a lot of the actors that I see coming from you have so much of that groundwork laid to have a conversation, because we all know it's different when you're working on your craft than when you're out in front of someone or in a meeting or in a Zoom room. There's a little different vibrancy there, or frequency that can show up for people. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mutual love. And because we're going to be hosting 3 live webinars for our community, and with Brian leading this incredible workshop, 3 big lies that stop you from finding the right reps. So if you can easily sign up for those free webinars. The link is right in our bio right now. So that's super easy to do if you haven't done that. Go to the link. But I want to ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, do it. Let's do it. Also, because here's the other thing. I want to make sure everyone who's listening may be thinking about joining, or they just want to get pumped up to join for the free masterclass. This is the perfect time for you to decide if it's meant for you to be there, because I don't want you to waste your time either. Obviously, the link is in your bio. They can click in RSVP and show up, and hopefully you will. But if you have a question about it, now's the time for us to hash the Sarah and I are going to hash that out for you. Yeah.
I have a million questions.
Great. Let's do it. I cleared my schedule. We're ready.
Yes. So is the number really at this point like 542 actors that you've helped? I'm sure it's greater than that, because
it's higher. I mean, here's the truth. I get an email. This is full integrity. I get an email every day.
Yeah.
Or someone posting in our Facebook group saying they've signed with a manager agent. Or I have an actor who already went through the program and was like, you know what? I also want reps in the Southeast. And they're telling me again. Or, you know what? I'm in LA, but I think I deserve reps in New York. And they have reps in New York. So the number goes up every single day. Keeping an official count and changing on all of the multiple websites would be exhausting for me and everybody who helps me make this thing deliverable. So, and the other thing,
hundreds and hundreds of
the other thing I'll say is some actors I don't find out till a year later. Oh, Brian, by the way. So depends on how vocal an actor is ready to tell me, right?
Yeah. Well, I know of a few. I know of several of them recently, so I know that number's got to be higher. So, what if you had to kind of summarize, in a little tiny nutshell, because there's so much to what you do, but what do you feel like is some of the keys that are leading to those amazing results?
Great. So first of all, I want to jump just like into like the result land that you're kind of talking about. Like what is going on with them that actually attracts this in is where I want to start. Yeah. I think you teed me up for that. So the first thing is a quality which is non-delusional. And what I don't mean by that is holding ourselves down. That is the opposite of delusional. Actually, there's a great delusion in reducing yourself to the credits on your resume. That is actually delusional. I think living only by your receipts is delusional, because what you're not allowing a manager or agent to discover is how close you got to an audition, or how when you got a call back and someone else didn't. And you have to remember, like, remember that agent's client didn't even get the audition that you got in for. So these other pieces where if you look at your resume, I know that you struggled or wrestled or did work to get each of these gigs on your resume. And I also know for everyone there's 15 that you got close to.
Yeah.
And so those are that's the kind of traction that a manager agent is also wanting for their clients. And so that non-delusional quality that's both like, I kind of know where I stack up and I know what I'm bringing to the table, which isn't just my credit. So when I say where I stack up, I think that feels so blanket statement. So let me drill down just a tiny bit there. What I mean by that is there was an actor I was working with the other day, and we were working on some of the messaging he was putting out, and he was like, I just feel like I don't have everything on my credits on my resume. No one's going to care. And I was like, that is why they will care. Okay, let us figure out how to say this now. And so we landed on saying something like, my training and experience, my resume does not reflect the training and experience. My resume does not reflect the training experience, which is why I'm in your inbox today, which is why I'm reaching out. Part of what happens in the non-delusional space is saying exactly where you are. You can think of it this way.
Problem is a solution, right?
What?
The problem is a solution.
The problem is a solution. Totally, yes.
Yeah.
We think of it this way also as like, if you've ever been around someone who like isn't cool to say their age, right? So you can't talk about their age with them because they're not cool to talk about their age. If you're an actor who isn't saying kind of where you're at in the business, I, as a manager and agent, am not going to feel comfortable saying to you, well, based on your resume, I think we need to get some casting directors to know you. It might be co-star land for a little while. I won't feel comfortable enough to be able to have that conversation with you. So I can say, this person doesn't know where they are. I can't work with them because I'm never going to be able to get them what they want because they're la la land.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of the dance we have to do. If I'm allowed to take up all this space because of my potential of what I can book. And I'm aware that like sometimes there are a little bit of hierarchies in the business, and like I'm going to believe into that only as much as I need to help this conversation move forward. So I want to be very mindful. I don't believe that like you got to book a co-star, then you must book a guest star. But we want to believe a little bit into the idea that that trope is out there. Yeah. So we can lean into a manager agent going, oh, this person kind of gets it, which doesn't mean you couldn't have the guest star or pilot be the first thing to book whatsoever, but we want to kind of show that we get it. That's the first, this non-delusional quality. The other is an awareness that you are an actor no matter what anyone says.
Yes.
And that is a really big one. And part of why the work that, we'll talk about this in the masterclass, but part of why the work starts with you. And I say, what is the story that brought you to acting? Where have you showed up for acting in the past? Where have you resisted acting in the past? So that we can start to heal the parts of ourselves that we might have orphaned off, and bring them back into the fold. Or the private tech is Wayward School for Wayward Actors, to bring back those orphans back into ourselves, to say, oh, during that time of life, my grandpa was sick and I needed to set acting down for a minute because I needed to be there with my family. And so we can start to heal those moments and be appreciative of who we needed to be in that moment. And that might sound like, what are we talking about, agents and managers? Because that person shows up in that meeting. That person feels like they weren't an actor. That person who was knocking on the door of, during that time in my life, I wasn't really an actor. It can show up in a meeting. And it's the last thing we need. Yeah. And then the other piece of it I think you need is like, what'd you say?
I love that. It's such a good point.
And then I think the other thing is you need a freaking strategy, because you and I both know, like, it's so easy to like, well, no one wrote me back, I'm not going to send another email. Or like
that was embarrassing.
Right. Or like, totally. Or like, maybe my subject line was wrong. How am I going to feel like, or.
And I sent 8 emails.
I sent 8 emails, which is one of my, I want to see, like, that is really good job. You sent 8 emails. If you went apple picking and you picked 8 apples, you'd be like, that was not a great apple picking experience. Like what, or like the target list. So let's not get into target list for the moment, but just the clarity of having a strategy. Here's why I think a strategy works. Not because you go, the strategy works, so that's why it works. The strategy works because it keeps us out of negative thinking. We go, I know what my next step is. You know, they say something, I think they say this in recovery, and they say that you don't have to believe that this will make a chocolate cake. You just have to follow the steps and there will be a chocolate cake at the end. And so there's some great gift in knowing that if I take the steps, I will get some kind of results instead of having to cobble things together on your own or try to maybe do what your friend did or rely on the referral. And I just think that makes your world so small. And I also think it doesn't give the managers and agents who would love you exactly the way you are right now, exactly with the amount of credits you have, exactly with that reel, exactly with that headshot, to the dignity of choosing you.
Yes.
And I think we choose them first out of some perverse desire to create a target list because then we can engineer small risk because at least only 8 people saw me fail because that's what we imagine is going to happen instead of really putting skin in the game and reaching out to a broader net.
And what are we really basing that target list off anyway, right? I mean,
the random stuff that you can get off the internet, like it killed. Wait, I'm just going to say it right now. It makes me so, when a manager or agent will be like, you really like when you research me beforehand. I really want to say, you know that we all know the same amount of information. Like there's like, I'll research you. All of it will be inauthentic. If you would like me to fabricate a connection with you, I can do the same one that every neighbor on my street can. Let's all do this. It sounds great. Yeah. Which I think is why we feel dishonest when you reach out in that way. Or we feel like we have to hide something or puff ourselves up in some weird way.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Well, so talking about the reaching out part, what do you think? Is there like a most effective way to get these agents' eyes on actors' material?
Totally. I'll tell everyone one thing to stop doing right now, just as a this is a little bit of a preview of what we go into the masterclass. So this will get people pumped up for it, right? Which is don't send attachments unless an agent sends back to you. Please, can you attach your headshot or resume? Which is totally fine. In the day of Russian bots, no one is interested in strangers' attachments. Okay? Totally. So that's like one, like that feels like simple, but I just want to put that out there. Totally. Yeah. And the other thing, and I talk about this more in the masterclass, is your website is probably beautiful, but unless it is the most boring website in the world, you shouldn't use it to reach out to reps. The reason why I say boring is most people want to celebrate themselves on their website, and you totally should. And it's a great tool to use for casting. But when it comes to representation, if you give me the entire Thanksgiving dinner, but you really want me to taste the cranberry sauce, I might never get to that end of the table. That's what a website is like. You get to take them out. They get to look at anything they want to. You lose control of the narrative of what you're trying to tell them. And to me, the whole point of reaching out with this much thoughtfulness, which is what we'll talk about in this masterclass, of course, is I need to let you see where I've been and more importantly, where I'm going. Because I'll bet there are people listening right now who have agents they don't love or when they've been stuck with one who thought was kind of lame and didn't know what to do. And we don't want a manager agent who like digs where you are right now. We want a manager agent who's like, I can't wait to go with where you're going. Yeah. If they dig with where you are right now, you could probably get those auditions on your own. Yes. So we've got to have them fall in love with this potential. And that's where the narrative comes, which is why I think the narrative where you're going isn't always told on a website. Most often the narrative of a website is, look at everything I did.
It makes so much sense. We get to narrow the focus. We get to narrow the focus and really like control the narrative is the perfect way. Yeah.
Another way to think of it is like if you were on stage giving your TED talk about why someone should work with you, you might not mention the commercial you did for Taco Bell because it doesn't make sense. Like you wouldn't like, and also by the way, this Taco Bell commercial, but it'll be on your website.
Right.
Which is like, well, oh, I wanted to look at that. That was interesting. What else do I have to do today? Like I
got dance. Yeah.
Totally. But wait, I can sing. Did they know I can sing? Like all
question. Totally. Yeah. Okay, here's something that I see a lot, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about this, of just about and it's so easy to do, makes so much sense, have sort of this negative mindset about the whole process, about what the experience of it's going to be like. It's a little bit kind of like when actors go get headshots where it's just like, headshots, it's like looming out. That happens, I think, with agents and managers. Well, it's just like, I feel sort of stuck with my current one, or I don't have one. And I just feel like I don't even know what to do. It's too big. I can't start. So what do you have to say? I know you have said.
Yeah, but I also love what you just said about headshots, because I always I feel so much empathy for when someone says headshots, because I'd be like, oh my god, you get to spend money on taking pictures of yourself. It should be fabulous. Let's try to reorient ourselves in this moment, right? So one of the first of all, reaching out to reps is dysfunctional. It's upside down. They're choosing you so that they can work for you. We have to just acknowledge that, like, this is a little wild and a little bit bananas, and it has nothing to do with me. First of all, that part has nothing to do with me, and I'm going to be really conscious of the fact that I am choosing to tread into a marsh. Like, there's a little bit of stickiness around here that has nothing to do with me. That's what the weather is like in this neighborhood. So we have to separate our thinking from what's going on here, right? And then the ghosts of acting teachers and actors past who have told us the way you're supposed to do it and the way you have to do it. We say, thank you so much for all your advice. I'm going to be where I am right now.
Yeah, and so fast and so much.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things I think is so important is this, and this might also be why I think people who work through this program are dangerous, and I love this, is if they're not your person, screw off. Please don't pick me. I love someone getting a no, and grabbing onto this mindset I think can elevate you, where you say, I'm going to present exactly how I am and where I'm going. So the person who is in love with that and is excited by that can reveal themselves. And hopefully the people who aren't are moving on and not wasting my time with a meeting because they're not going to go where I want to go. This is like when an actor will come to me and say, well, I also do voiceover. I also want to be a writer. And I'd say, okay, great. Is it important to you that you're, in this case, let's say a manager? Once that, is it important to you that your manager will represent you for that? And you've got a road to path. You know what? Road to tread. You know what? I really want them to believe in my writing as well. Or I don't care. I just want to get theatrical work. Great. We now get to decide what the messaging is going to look like. So we know that the people who reveal themselves will say they will care about your writing because we've included it. The perverted way to do this is to say, I need to make a list of all the managers who like to work with actors who are also writers. I'm sorry, I don't know what kind of time y'all have. That is, you are going down a black hole where you're never going to have the answer. Because I'm a manager who only works with actors. You know what? It's 3 o'clock, and now I work with both. I could in the moment, by the time you've created people, right? So instead of that, why not give people the dignity of discovering you in a very honest way? Not like I'm Marilyn Monroe walking down the street, which is exactly what happened, but like I'm going to allow you to discover me because I'm going to put so much of myself into this, and clearly, like we said a minute ago, give you the narrative of where we're going together. And then what happens is they will self-eliminate, and that's what we want. What I think everyone's trying to do is I need to reach out to people so that every manager in the world loves me, and no, you don't want every manager in the world to love you, actually.
And then try to put yourself into their box when you get the meeting and being like, okay, what do they need? Let me be that.
Yes.
Right? So dangerous, because that's not the career you want.
No. And then also it's also like, okay, they really want me to book this and I have to like act like that's what I want to do. They change my headshots and resume, like, and it can be years and energy and time wasted with a bad match.
Totally.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, I know a lot of actors ask me about this and I have some thoughts, but I'm curious about what about follow-up strategies? Yeah,
you have to. How dare you think you get to send one email? I mean, that's my first response. I don't know who you are. Sarah, let's just paint a picture of your inbox right now. Are there some emails you're like, I'm going to get to that next week? I'm positive that there are. If they're not, I'm going to be jealous of you. Are you?
100%.
Yes. Okay.
I'm proud of it. You know
right.
What?
Yeah. So there's that piece of it. And then the second piece is so A Course in Miracles, I think most people know, maybe they don't, but I'm a non-denominational reverend. So I have a training background in spirituality, all spirituality, no religions, all religions.
Yes.
Good way to think of it, right? So A Course in Miracles is the tradition that I was trained in. And there's a line in it that says, it is dangerous to ourselves to try to understand the motivations of others. I'm going to say it again. It's dangerous to ourselves to try to understand the motivations of others. So if you are going to make a story about when no one responds, when someone says no, when someone says, tell me more, when someone says, not right now, then you will be pulverized by your first email. Totally. What we need is a system, so you don't get to think too much about that, where you know when you're sending the first email and the second email and the third email, if that's what you're going to do, right? So really having a process to continue through it. And I will tell you, I just had a client do this. And she sent email number 1, she had sent email no, she was getting some meetings, and she goes, I don't know if I need to send email number 3 because I already got a bunch of emails. Go, why don't you send, let's see what happens. Then she got as many she got from her first 2 emails on the 3rd email that she sent. She says, I've got all these people to choose from now. And so to believe that one email is enough is some backwards way of relating to an inbox. You're making up a big story there. You don't relate. I promise you, you deleted the last email you got from Bed Bath & Beyond. Do not even try to talk to me. And remember, there are hundreds of actors reaching out every day. So to cut through the noise, it just takes a little bit of persistence. I remember a client in New York. She sent email 1, she sent email number 2, she sent a third email. And in her third email, they wrote back and they said, we really appreciated that you reached out to us 3 times. We've been really busy. And if your tapes have been some of the best we've seen in a long time, we would love to meet with you. Thank you for nudging us again. And we just have this, like, I don't want to bother them. Who are these strangers you're bothering? Who are these people? Who are these the person who's going to respond to you energetically is going to cut through the noise this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to be offended by email too. Those not
exactly. Right. And also, I also want to take away, there's a difference between being noisy and being classy. So just knocking on the door again and again and again, I think that's our fear, that we're going to become that person. And that's not what I would be asking you to do. It is much more thoughtful. And a lot of it hinges on that first messaging that you put out, because it is so thoughtful. There's so much skin in the game. There's so much of you in that very first email that the tenor of the conversation changes, that we know there's a real professional on the other end of this. And the conversation has begun, and I will then, as the manager agent, get to decide if I want to say yes to meeting with them. That's just you continuing the conversation instead of it feeling like doing it all over again, right?
Continuing the conversation is a great way to think of it. I don't know if you've heard this, but Ira Glass talks about how persistent he was at the beginning of his career. Right. And I actually know someone who gave him his first job, and he talked to us about how he was just like, God, I got to give this kid a chance because he just won't leave me alone.
Got it. I will promise it won't feel like that when we do it the way I'm talking about. But what I love you're saying that is, we have to just, like, persistence isn't a bad quality, especially as an actor. We know you're going to have years when you work a lot and years when you don't.
This is a persistent, hardworking, dedicated person who takes this really seriously.
Yeah.
And who knows what they're worth.
Yeah.
So
and knows the business is a business of numbers. I think also, like, it also the business I understand this business has numbers, so it's normal for me to have to do this more than once. You did nothing wrong, because the wrong thing to say is, did you get my last email? We do not start email number 2 saying things like that. That is not the way to embrace or graciously welcome someone to the conversation again, right? So that's not what you're saying.
That's a good point. So when actors do land reps, how do they know? Or maybe they already have reps right now. How do they know if it's the right fit or not? I feel like, I also have, again, thoughts.
Yes.
I want to know yours.
So first, I want to just say, anyone who's listening who already has representation, who is thinking to themselves, I don't know if I should leave or if I shouldn't, I just want to reassure you should come to the class that we're having. You will learn something that you will take with you in that relationship, regardless if you stay or not. You don't have to make the decision now in order to come to the class to have value for you. So I just want to put that out there for you. Yeah. Also, if you already have reps and you're listening and you're not sure yet, I love it when an actor goes, I can't tell about this agent. We've been together for a while. I like the relationship when they're in that mixy place. Have you ever thought of adding a manager first before you make that decision? And that's suddenly that new energy can shift everything around. And so I just want to advocate for that space for people to occupy as well. And if you have the thought, who am I to think they deserve a manager? Who are you not to slap yourself in the face? You deserve a manager because you're an actor. End of story. Because I think a lot of people might be like, don't you have to be J-Lo before you get a manager? No. Eddie Medina is not the only manager out there. So in terms of making the decision, I go pretty deeply into this inside of the program. I call it the GPS, the Great Partnership Scale, because you need to know how to communicate and how to navigate with that person. One of the things that doesn't get talked about enough is when you leave a meeting, whether that's on Zoom or in person or on the phone with a manager agent, what kind of feeling did you get? Did you get a good feeling? Letting go of your baggage, of how they saw you, if anything showed up, any autopilot showed up because you got nervous for a moment. Did you have a good feeling? And to not write that off and to let it weigh into your decision making. Because we tend to want to run straight to IMDb, which, yes, we're going to do that too, but at least allow that feeling to show up, because we have to imagine there's going to be a time when you're going to be on set and they're going to say, you have to smoke a cigarette. You're going to be topless. We're asking you to do a third spot. We're not going to pay you any more money. And you're going to need to call that person and say, I need some help. Right? Like, I like to imagine the worst case scenario for yourself for a second so that you can, like, really feel, would I feel safe enough asking that person for help, knowing what would come up for me?
I'm glad you brought that up, because so many actors don't actually then go think about that, what that relationship is going to look like later. It's like, I'm so focused on getting the job that like I'm not going to think about all these really important like scenarios I'm going to be in that these people are going to be like your lifeline.
Yes. And that they, so well said, because they also have to see the vision that you saw. So in that conversation, in that meeting, one of the most important questions, I'm just going to, everyone just to list, jot this down or come back to this, is to ask the manager agent at some point. You get to ask questions too. It's your decision. Let's not forget. Something like, based on everything you've learned about me and you've taken a look at my resume and my reel or my materials, and whether or not this works out and we decide to work together, what do you see next for me in my career? And then shut the hell up and let them talk, because you're going to get a lot of what they have to do in that moment is think about sitting at their desk and working for you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's such an important moment for them to then say, well, this is kind of what I see happening next. And you'll get to see them think. And that is what you want to know, because you're not going to be in the room when they're doing it, when they're doing their job. You're not going to be in the room when they're submitting it. So that question, I think, also helps. And then, of course, do your due diligence. Look at IMDb. Do they have no clients who are working? How recently have their clients worked? Being aware that 2020 was a thing. Like, just kind of timing-wise, that's another piece. And then I would just, the way that I work, I don't want to get too deep in this. I'll lead anybody astray, but this is kind of how you would get started on deciding if they're the right person for you. I had a client who had 16 meetings, 16 offers. So you can imagine that sounds really positive and exciting, but also like, what am I going to do? And you can get right. Right. I would fall back into the trap of, what if I get this wrong? And so it's so important to me that, I would be a really crappy coach if I was like, here's how you get agents. I'm not going to take care of you when you get your meetings. Like, see you later. Right. So part of what I think in this whole process is there's self-care built into the kind of the process that I do. Yeah. Because when you're in front of that manager or agent, I need you to be so full of yourself, literally, not grandiosity, but just full of yourself, so that you are not on autopilot, so you can listen and hear and sense, who is this person and are they right for me? And I think a lot of times our decision-making skills can be turned off when we've drained ourselves in some way or another. So that's part of what I think also goes in that process.
Stuff that doesn't matter. I see that actors will then go to their IMDb and look at their clients and try to figure it out that way and get into this really heady space.
Yes.
If you sit quietly and listen, the answer is there, right?
Yes. And I think the difficult part actually becomes, I feel really good about 4 of them. And so then we need to go get technical. Then we get to get a little bit technical. Or like, let me look at their roster and see if there's anybody like me. Yeah. That is their job. Please don't do their job. They will deal with it. You don't know if that person got pregnant yesterday. You know anything about that, right? They're going to take themselves off the market for a minute, or going on big vacation, or booked a job. They're going to be series regular for 2 years. Now they can't work in it. Like, you have no idea.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
I could talk about this all day long.
Yeah, me too. I mean, obviously, I love to talk about this.
But can I ask you a question about communication? Like, what also in the agent meetings? Like, I feel like that's also something that I see come up where, I have a dear friend who's a longtime working actor, and he said, you know what, I don't need to. I have basically I never communicate with my agent, and it works really, really well. Wow. And I have some actors who really, really, they have a lot of relationships, really strong relationships. And there were the days when actors were all looking at the breakdowns, right? Let's face it. And everybody's looking at the breakdowns, and they would see, and they would go through and they would tell their agents and managers, like, hey, here's all my relationships. But what some actors have been able to work out is a slightly different system, where basically their agents and managers are sending them their daily submission report and saying, hey, let's do it this way. You tell me after I submitted. So do you think some of those things are valid to kind of bring up in some of those meetings and to figure out the communication style? Or is that something you deal with once you're kind of...
I think that, here's what I think. Talking about communication can be helpful, but watch the communication you're actually given, because it's right in front of you.
Right.
So I could talk, anyone could talk a big game around whatever. So be mindful there. The other thing is, I think that to insinuate something you had with another manager agent, like, we had this system worked out, where we're put you a little too much on their side of the desk. Mm-hmm. And I think the better way to have their conversation is, you know what, with my old representation, we had this really great feeling around knowing that I was being seen for all the right things, and the cast directors they always knew about the cast directors. Is there a process that you like to use, or that would you want to institute together, so we made sure that would be happening, is very different than saying, I already have the solution. Because if I already have the solution, I'm on your side of the desk, and that's not your job. Because their solution could be 100 times better than the one you used to have. So I think as long as you're coming with, like, here's a result that I think we could benefit from. I don't know how to get there. Can we talk about it? And then maybe you'll bring up, my old agent, we did this. you could bring it up. But to come in and say, I know how to do this is, I think, unfair.
Yeah, that's a really, really good answer. I like that. Something I've heard you talk about also a lot is, you know, and this has come up today, just talking about actors sharing their story.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as the difference between actors sharing their story versus like not being delusional?
So I want to also be mindful, like inside of the program, I ask you to share your story, but it's not like put on a one-person show. That's a very different story. Very different situation, right? So sharing your story is a way that I believe we need to be witnessed for some of the moments in our life where we really showed up, and also to maybe find moments where we needed to drill deeper and say like, oh, I missed this, or I rushed by this moment, and I didn't discover all that could have been learned from that. And so the delusional piece, I think, comes in, you know, one of the things we do inside of the story is I ask them to think about what their future might look like. Mm-hmm. And I don't say like, let us now manifest. That is a different class. That is not who I am. I'm down to suck on a crystal and light some Palo Santo. I got it right here, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? When I'm saying imagine your future, I'm saying if I built a crystal ball out of your past, what you've achieved, what you've done, what you haven't done, who you've been, where you've lived, where you went to school, and then I looked through it, what is one possible path that could be ahead of you that you'd be really into? If we can believe in a positive, conspiring universe, and this is what's likely to be next for Sarah Gaboury on her path, what do we imagine that is, right? And then you start to see what that would look like. Because I mean, you've always had the power, my dear, is kind of where I want to, that thought comes from, you know, like that, like you already are everything you need to be. And instead of us saying, well, I should get a co-star and I should be that, we tend to dream small instead of having vision into what it is. Because then I see actors say things like, I'm shooting in Bulgaria, a film for 6 weeks. And you know what led me to that was doing the series that we shot in UK for like, they suddenly have this different vision, and it is not, I do this and then I do this and then I do this. It is more, there's more presence inside of it. And I love you said, like, what is not delusional about it? That vision may or may not be the thing you get to say in the meeting with your manager and agent, because typically they're going to be looking at what does the next 5 years look like?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that knowing what you imagine next allows you to have more facility. Having said it out loud in front of other people allows your chompers, your skin, your eyes, your body to have been through the chemical process of saying that which you want for yourself out loud. And it has to have happened somewhere else other than the crucible of the manager agent meeting that has history of all the drama. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So if I'm an actor, let's say I'm trying to level up, or I've never had an agent, I'm stuck. What steps would you recommend I take right away to start to see progress?
You better sure shit be in an acting class. You better be working on your craft. It is the most important thing. Put me out of business, go to acting class instead. Like that. I mean, honestly, most often an actor will come to me when they were unhappy and say, how often have you acted in the past week? Have you been taking your medicine, which is your acting? Have you been doing the thing you were called to do, the thing your whole body was made to do? That if you've been doing that, you're going to have better thoughts. So that if you've been on an actor diet where you've gotten a low-calorie acting experience, we need to have Thanksgiving a little bit and feed that piece of it. The other piece is, at the end of the day, we want a manager who agent in multiple cities across the world, of course, right? That are in love with your acting. And so all the storytelling, all the narrative controlling, all of this creating this follow-up system, all of this is to direct them to watch you act. So all of this is around like, what are you then presenting of your acting? And that should be the most delightful, joyous piece of this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll see actors, and Sarah, you and I've talked about this, where they're challenged, like, I got to find the perfect material. And that is the same as creating a target list.
Yes.
The perfect material is the same. It's engineering some, I want to protect myself. If I choose the perfect scene, then if my acting kind of blows, it won't really matter. No. Like, let's get close. Let's get like in the neighborhood of perfect.
Let's get started.
Yes.
And like, I'm going to pull, and like, I'm just buried by all these scenes and shows, and let's pick one. This seems pretty good. Let's go. Let's go.
Yes. And then
also, do you want to see this? I wanted just a little word of caution here, because this is the thing that of course gets me like all super fired. Yeah. It's just, I think because they are so different, right? The craft side of things, and then all this other different brain stuff. Some actors get a little cozy being stuck in their kind of marketing, because it's not as you don't have to trudge through all the emotional stuff. You don't have to be as, I mean, you're going to be vulnerable on that side as well. also, it can be a little comfy to kind of hide in like my tech and my emails and my.
Totally. And Sarah, you're saying something. Also, let's remember, you can whip up your laptop at 2 a.m. and start working on your acting career. You can't do that in an acting class. Or you might believe that you can't do acting at 2 a.m. It's so much more convenient. Like the business becomes a little like convenience crutch at times. Or like, I don't have to pay any money because I'm not in an acting class to feel like I'm in the business because I can go submit myself online. And we just have to remember that like Van Gogh was not only painting paintings when he knew they'd be hanging in a gallery. He painted because he needed to paint. If that makes you feel weird because I use Van Gogh as an example, pick somebody else. But just I'm going to make sure like we need to our craft is so vital to this. And like none of this will work if the acting isn't there.
Yes.
That's what I was saying, right? And I want to caution, that doesn't mean you have to have 65 credits on your resume.
Yeah.
It does not mean that. In fact, you could be at the very beginning of getting credits on your resume, but you're putting in the work in the acting craft right now, and there's a rep who'll be excited about you. So I really want to make sure no one's writing themselves off from that.
Absolutely. You can go, you see this too, actors with a couple of really excellent high quality self-tapes where the managers go, I got it.
Yes. Yes.
I know what we can do and I see where we're headed. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and this is where people can dream small, I think, too, because people are like, well, I need to do like a tiny scene because I want to book a co-star. Like, no one wants, every manager and agent in the world wants you to book a series regular. They got to put their kids to parochial school. They got to buy a mansion in Beverly Hills. Like, they got bills to pay. They want you to book a series regular. So please put yourself in the space that you want to be in when you're putting these things together.
Yeah. Brian, it's so good to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks.
You want us to know anything that I'm not thinking of? I feel like I really could literally sit here and talk to you all day.
Sure.
But I would love for, if you're like even remotely on the fence, go do this free class. You can just click the link right in the bio. It'll take you right there. We made it super easy. I want to reiterate, I really think that the work that you're doing, Brian, I love the work that you do so much because you really do pick up kind of where I leave off and vice versa. It's such a good fit. And what you do is so different than what I do. And I love recommending your work to actors because so many actors have so much success. And because if they're doing all this work in class and then they go over and they work with you and they can put that beautiful work out into the world, it's so great that so many people are ending up feeling so good about themselves at the end of this process of working with you, like really feeling like there are all these people who want me. They want me. Like there's all these people who like really get me and want me. And I'm like, I've never thought this was possible, Yes.
And if I can leave with this, Sarah, because I think that's so important. You said it's part of the reason why I think people can say yes to something called Make Agents Want You is some secret belief. If I try that won't work for me because I am so different or I have such a different story. There's no way that can be true for me. I just want to encourage you to enter into the space that we will create together where some of that mythology or lies will start to break down for you. And no matter, when I'm there, one of the things that I love is that I'm going to stay through the end until anyone has a question. And that's when I get to know the people who are there. And I get to so Kelly, who's listening, goes, this one part, I couldn't figure out how to make it work for me. Let's talk it through. My goal is that you leave that class with action to take and a mind that has been changed or at least started to change about how to reach out to reps. And so if you're on the fence at all, sign up and get all the good juju and show up, and then we'll talk about it there, wherever you're stuck. Because I think skepticism is so important. It's one of the ways that actors are smart. Yeah. And so use your skepticism to your advantage. And Brian, I didn't believe this bullshit. Let's talk about it in the Q&A. Like write it down and let's talk about it so I can help you apply it to yourself. So I just can't wait to meet more of your people there, Sarah. Thank you.
I know. I'm so excited for them. And I'm gonna pop in and say hello on at least a couple of those. So I'm so excited. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for talking to us. And I can't wait to see you all over the next few days.
Great. Thank you. Go to Sarah's bio. She's got the link. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.